Hey everybody, it's Alex, the founder and CEO at Motoroso, and in this video we're going to be doing a step-by-step installation guide for the Rockslide Engineering step sliders for the 21 and up Ford Bronco. Now we made a full product spotlight video and we'll put a link to that right here, and we talk about all the features and functionality, but in this video we're going to show you how to get them on the vehicle. Now we did both the 2-door and the 4-door installations. They are essentially identical. The only difference between the 4-door and 2-door is that the 2-door has one fewer bracket, and they do include the 4-door harness in the 2-door kit. So if you get that and you freak out that they sent you the wrong wiring harness, don't worry about it. You just got a little bit of extra wiring to bundle up, and you only want to use the blue wires, not the green wires for the sensors, and that is the only difference. Now, you're going to mostly see us installing the 4-door because, again, we want to show that additional bracket, but also we installed all the optional accessories with the 4-door. That includes the skid plate armor, it includes the LED light kit and the door delete kit, and we'll also show you in this video how those function in comparison to just the base version. But in the meantime, you can also shop for these products on our website, and we'll put all the links to those in the video description. And you can also reach us on live chat or call us toll free at 833-MOTOROSO anytime you're ready to shop for any of your Bronco stuff. But let's get started with our installation. Now, before we get started with our install, I want to go through each of the components that are going to come in the package and a couple of accessories that are optional that we've chosen that we're going to show you how to install here. Now, I think we should start by talking about the wiring harness. Lay the harness out in front of yourself and make sure you visually identify the different components so that you know when we go to install it what's what. Now, starting with the battery terminal end of the harness, you're going to have this end of the harness that has a fuse holder and then a long line that's going to run back, and the first major bundle is going to be the driver's side step bundle. And what makes the driver's side bundle different is that it's going to have the connector that controls or connects to and handles the power on off switch. This is going to get mounted. Again, we're going to show you exactly how to do that. All that comes in this package, and then that's going to run on over to the passenger side. And this line is going to get passed up and over the frame rail, underneath the vehicle, zip tied up, and then up through the grommet on the passenger side. The rest of the connectors on the harness are the circuit board connector that controls the steps, and then of course each harness is going to have the two sensor connectors, and the sensors for the doors come in this same box over here. All right, so that's the wiring harness, and again, we're going to show you step by step how to install this, but that is the lay of the land there. Now let's move over to the brackets. The bracket box is going to contain these all these different brackets, starting with the front brackets, the second set of brackets back. Then there are 4 identical brackets. Now, if you have a 2-door kit, you're just going to have 2 of those. So the only difference to the 2-door and 4-door kit is that there are 4 of these, and those are positions 3 and 4. And then your 5th set of brackets are these less vertically angled brackets. You can see there's a big difference between those two. Okay, now also in this package is all of the hardware you're going to need. We're not going to go through every single nut and bolt, but along the way we will show you which ones to use. There's 2 shim brackets that are just a spacer that helps the step sit nicely up against the body pinch weld. And then the this box, the Bronco brackets box, does contain the magnets for your sensors and the bracket to mount the switch over here. So I'm just going to take these and put them over here with that stuff now, because that's going to go all together. Additionally, there are some accessories, and I covered all of these in our product spotlight video, which we'll go ahead and put a link to that right here again so you can see all the potential options for this kit. But the first one that's covered is the door delete kit. Now this is going to come with 2 harnesses and 2 of these nice little switches, and this is going to allow you to operate the step. And basically all this is going to do is wire up and wire in directly in line with the sensor switches, and then this switch just interrupts each sensor switch. So very straightforward there. It just comes with 2 of those. If you want front and rear buttons, you need to buy 2 of these kits and then just duplicate the way that you wire them in. The LED light kit, in my opinion, this is an absolute must. You probably shouldn't be spending all this money on these steps and not getting the LED wiring kit, but you know, to each their own. Very simple install. This is going to plug right into the wiring harness, and then these simply get stuck up inside the step. So really, really straightforward on how to wire these in, and you can definitely put them in after the fact if you didn't buy these in the first place. We've got a link to buy all these optional accessories in the description, as well as, of course, the steps. That's the overview of everything that comes in the kit, plus the 2 optional accessories. Let's go ahead and get started with the install, starting with our wiring from the battery back. Before installing the wiring, if you have any existing steps or sliders, you'll need to remove these. Start by removing the 10mm nuts on the pinch weld. Then with a 13mm socket, remove the bolts holding the step or slider to the brackets, and you can remove the whole step and slider. Lastly, again using a 13mm socket, remove the brackets from the body. For good measure, we clean the surfaces where the new brackets will be going. Now with a clean slate, we can get started with our wiring. First, remove the fuse from the wiring harness and put it somewhere safe, like your cup holder. We're going to be passing this end of the harness behind the body bolt into the front fender well. We found it was easier to pass something from the fender well backwards and then tape it to the wiring and pull it through. Next, pass the wiring up behind the fender liner along the firewall and behind the fuse box towards the battery. Now connect the red line to the positive terminal and the black wire to the negative terminal. Now go back to the harness behind the body bolt and tug the harness line backward to remove the slack, and then zip tie along the frame rail to the existing OEM wiring harness. On the 4-door application, the first bundle of wiring should line up perfectly with the grommet. And on the 2-door, you'll find that you have an additional 12 to 18 inches of harness line that can be doubled back on itself and zip tied together. Locate the drain plug grommet under the rear door. To access this from the top, it is not the drain plug in the middle of the floorboard. It is underneath the flooring closest to the door sill. To access this, you'll need to pull up on the door sill trim piece and pull back on the edge of the floor mat or carpet. Remove the OEM drain plug by prying up on it with a flathead screwdriver. Using a blade, cut a 1/2-inch slit into the supplied rubber grommet and pass the power switch line and both sensor connectors through this grommet. From underneath the vehicle, pass the wiring through into the cabin and then massage the grommet into place. Locate the sensor connector with the green wire and set that aside for the rear door. Then pass the power switch cable and the blue sensor connector forward to the front door alongside the B-pillar trim. Make sure you tuck it underneath the trim as you go. Remove the door sill panel by simply lifting up on it and continue passing the wiring forward, tucking it under the trim. This is where you'll leave the front door sensor connector, and continue passing the power switch forward, tucking it underneath the kick panel trim and around the footrest. To lower the control panel trim, simply pull down or gently pry on the edge of the panel and drop it down to reveal the 7mm bolt at the lower left of this panel. Using a 7mm socket, remove this bolt, then slide the power switch bracket into place, replace the bolt, and raise the panel back into place. Next up, connect the yellow, red, and black to their correct location on the power switch and clip the power switch into its place on the bracket. Just a note, this switch can be very bright when it's on, so if you don't want this switch to be lit up all the time, you can leave the yellow wire disconnected. This is what we did on our Bronco. Now it's time to pass the passenger side wiring over the frame rail and along the floorboard and over the gas tank to the passenger side. Pull the line snug, starting on the driver's side, zip tying to static objects, making sure to avoid anything sharp or rotating. To assist with passing over the gas tank, we recommend passing a line feed over the gas tank from the passenger side frame rail, taping the harness to your feed and then pulling it through. Remove the rear door sill trim and locate the drain grommet on the passenger side, removing it with a flathead screwdriver, and repeating the process of cutting a hole in your grommet, but this time you're only passing the 2 door sensors through the grommet. Set the connector with the green wire in place for the rear door and pass the connector with the blue wire forward to the front door, tucking the wiring under the B-pillar trim along the way. Now we're ready to get started installing your step sliders on the Bronco. Start by removing the 2 10mm body bolts at the base of the quarter panel right behind the front wheel. Clean this surface before installing your spacer. Then place the black spacer with the angled end leaning towards the front wheel. Use the supplied 4mm Allen head bolt in the forward bolt hole, and then reuse one of the OEM painted bolts in the rear hole and tighten these down. Now locate the 2 large 15mm body bolts at the front and rear of the body, and loosen these roughly 3 to 5 turns. Do not remove them. The bracket slides in between the bolt head and the retained washer. Now we started from the rear by placing bracket number 5 between the bolt head and the washer. Use 2 of the supplied 13mm hardware to loosely attach each of the 3rd and 4th brackets. Place another 13mm bolt in the innermost threaded hole and hang the bracket number 2. And on the front body mount, slide bracket number 1 between the bolt head and the washer. Now this can be a very snug fit due to the retained washer, and you may need to use a rubber mallet to coax it into place. Now unpack and bring your step over. We recommend placing it on something padded or soft to avoid any unnecessary scratches. Before raising the steps into place, tuck the wiring through the laser cut hole next to the smart motor. These steps are heavy, so we found it helpful to use a jack. Balancing the step on the jack was pretty easy and allowed us to lift it into place and line up the pinch seam bolts nicely. Once the step is hanging from the pinch seam bolts, the jack can be removed and it will hang in place. Now use the supplied 1/4 inch and 5/16 inch nylock nuts and torque these to 8 foot-pounds and 18 foot-pounds respectively. This step is very important because it will align the steps and make attaching the brackets to your steps much easier. As you can see in our footage, we didn't do this on the first side, but we learned our lesson, and when we did this on the other side, it saved us a lot of trouble. Now you can prepare all of your 13mm bracket bolts with the supplied washers and move from one end to the other, placing all of these bolts with the majority of the threads in, but waiting to fully tighten them. With all your bracket bolts in place, you can now tighten all the different bracket bolts securing the brackets to the body and the frame rail of the Bronco. Make sure to tighten the 15mm body mount bolts to 80 foot-pounds of torque. Now you can finish tightening all of your bracket mounting bolts. That's the step fully mounted. Now repeat this process on the other side of the vehicle, and then we'll get on with connecting the wiring to the steps. Connecting the wiring to the steps is very easy. For the circuit board connector, simply pass the harness through the laser cut opening and gently press it onto the circuit board until you hear a click. For the red and yellow wired connector, pass it up and connect it to the corresponding 2-pronged connector. Repeat this step on the other side. Before connecting our sensors, you can reinsert the fuse to confirm that the power is running to the steps correctly. When you plug in the fuse, the steps should deploy and retract once or twice to calibrate and then stay retracted. If both steps deploy, you're good to go. Pull the fuse out again and we're ready to install each door sensor. RSE recommends only installing one sensor and magnet at a time to make sure you get the magnet placement correct for each door. Once the sensor is connected, if it does not detect a magnet, the step will remain deployed, and this can cause confusion if you're trying to troubleshoot, so we think this is a very useful tip. RSE's instructions provide detailed diagrams on where to place the sensor and exactly where to place the magnet for each door, and if you follow this carefully, everything should go fairly smoothly. Now we found it helpful to place the sensor without the tape, using a pen to make a mark on the door sill, and then pull the plastic trim out of the way and adhere using the supplied tape. Reference RSE's instruction manual for the precise location of each sensor. Once the sensor is in place, you can peel off the tape on the wire protector and adhere it just inside the door channel and then plug it into the wiring harness. Referencing the diagram in the installation manual for each door, repeat this process for the following 3 doors. In the case that your magnet placement doesn't seem to work, you can attempt to use a mild adhesive tape on one side of the magnet and on the other side your full-strength double-sided adhesive. Gently place the magnet over the sensor with the mild adhesive side, leaving the strong adhesive side exposed, and then close the door. And if you reopen it, the magnet should be stuck to the door in exactly the right location. We had to do this for one of our doors, and it worked pretty well. After doing each door, make sure that the steps function as expected, meaning that when you open the door, the step retracts, and when you close the door, they go back up after a couple seconds. If you've opted for the optional door delete kit, we recommend getting all your sensors installed and functioning before adding the door delete kit switch. Once you know those are working properly, the supplied harness simply plugs in line with the 2 sensors on each side of the vehicle. Once the harness is in, connect the switch by sliding the tab connectors over the 2 prongs on the back of the switch. RSE supplies some handy dandy mounting plates that mount on the seat frame. Simply pop out this plastic plug, use the supplied clip nut on the metal bracket behind the plastic trim. Before mounting the bracket, pass the switch wires through the cut in the bracket and use the supplied Phillips head bolt to fasten. Repeat this process on the other side. After you've double checked everything is working properly, you can clean up your wiring and reinstall your door trim pieces. The switch has 2 positions, in and out. Leaving it in the in position is going to allow your steps to function normally with the door sensors. Releasing the button into the out position will retract the steps and disable the door sensor on that side. After installing the door delete kit, we recommend testing all 4 doors and the door delete buttons to make sure everything is working properly. Installing the LED light kit is very simple. First, pass the plug on the LED light strip through the laser cut hole out the back of the step and connect it to the 2-prong lighting connector on the wiring harness. Pull the slack of this back through the die cut hole, then mount the first LED inside the body of the step slider, making sure to avoid any of the moving parts. Then pass the second LED on the strip behind the cutout of the inside supports and mount it further towards the front to illuminate the front section of the step. We liked mounting the LEDs to the portion of the body of the Bronco that is exposed inside the step housing because it sits at a more convenient angle to cast the light out through the opening of the steps. If you prefer the light to shoot straight down, you can mount it on the top of the inside of the step body. Repeat this on the other side, and that's the LED light kit installed. Installing the optional skid plate armor is also very straightforward, but it is heavy and it might help to have a second set of hands. Before installing the outer armor, you must remove the Rockslide Engineering logo plate from the outside of the step. Using a small drill bit, drill the tops of the rivets off without passing all the way through and peel the plate away from the step. The underside of the skid plate is held on by 3 carriage bolts that pass through the square holes in the skid plate through into the step slider. There's 1 hole in the middle and then there's 1 on each end. Despite being heavy, this can be done as a one-person job by allowing the step to hang down on one side. Place a carriage bolt from the underside of the skid plate through the hole between the 2 mounting bracket bolts at the very edge of the step slider. Using the supplied washer and nylock nut, thread the nut on but don't tighten it yet. Moving to the other end of the step slider, repeat this process. Then place your middle carriage bolt, washer, and nylock nut. Now snug your hardware down more tightly but do not fully tighten it just yet. Use a mallet to press the skid plate flush with the step slider, lining up the holes on the outer face of the skid plate with the holes on the step slider. Gently insert the supplied pound rivets to keep it in place and make sure the skid plate is properly aligned. Secure these pound rivets by pounding the exposed post to be flush with the rest of the head. Now finish fully tightening your carriage bolt hardware and repeat this process on the opposite side of the vehicle, and that's your skid plate armor installed. All right, we hope you found that video helpful. As you can see, a pretty straightforward installation. Now, if you'd like to purchase these step sliders, check out the links in the description. That'll go to our website, and you can reach us on live chat or call us toll-free at 833-Motoroso. If you want to learn more about these and you haven't seen it yet, check out our product spotlight video right here and subscribe to our channel because we got lots more mods coming on our Bronco and all of our other builds, and you're not going to want to miss any of it. Thanks for watching.